I bought this Allen & Heath GL2200 on Trade Me on the strength of the fact that I already owned one that was seriously dysfunctional. They are a great desk when they're going right. Unfortunately, this has a huge amount of faults and doesn't work as per the advertisement said. I will now do a demonstration of going through the many faults that I've found. I'm going to turn this mixer on now and we'll start going through it. Okay, so power's up. So one thing I've noticed already is that with the gain pot on channel 1 turned all the way down, I've still got full signal coming into the desk. However, it's not what we're... There's quite a difference. It seems to be happening on 1 and 2. And that could be a line level thing, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Oh yeah, because if I pat it back it's fine. Yep, alright. So anyway, we've got signal going in. We've got signal going in. I'm going to turn up some amplification and we'll start listening to this device. Now, as you can see, the output faders on the channel are turned all the way down. The output faders to the desk are turned up, but I've got signal coming out. There shouldn't be signal coming out because the input fader's turned down. So that in itself is a huge fault. And should not be happening at all. That's actually a fault I hadn't discovered until I had discovered that on other channels. I didn't realise it was on 1 and 2 as well. Here we go. So that's... Now, the physical appearance of this desk does not suggest what is happening with it. It looks good. It looks way better than the one I have owned for many, many years. So, right. Now, one of the other major issues is that none of the auxiliaries work. Sorry, that's not strictly correct. Auxiliaries 5 and 6 do work. However, auxiliaries 1 to 4, which are primarily pre-fade auxiliaries, which are generally used for monitoring purposes, don't work at all. I don't understand what on earth has happened that they've managed to render 4 auxiliaries unworkable. However, let's go through them and just prove that they are in fact not working. Oh, that really bothers me. Oh dear. Oh shit. Because I mean I have no control over that. There shouldn't be anything at all. That's a real dead concern. Anyhow, just to show you that the auxiliaries aren't working, I have auxiliaries 1 to 4 on the independent channels turned all the way up. The auxiliary masters are down at this point in time. I shall, because I have my effects plugged in to the auxiliaries, I shall unplug. So as you can see, just to verify, I do have level on 5 and 6. As you can see, I have signal there. And so, of course, as soon as I switched the the independent channels into pre-fade on the auxiliary out of the individual channel, it added a whole heap of signal, which was still escaping, although the faders are turned down. And it's hugely distorted. I don't know if you can actually hear that on the... You can hear that, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Alright, so auxiliaries 5 and 6, as you can see, are working. And we have signal coming out of 5 and 6. So if we then plug to... Okay, so we're now into auxiliaries 1 and 2. Turn the masters up. And there's no signal there at all. And that's with the masters completely turned up on the independent channel and on the output. Nothing there whatsoever. And it is also and that's interesting, isn't it? Because we also now have no signal escaping the output. Oh, hang on. Oh, yes we do. But with the master outs up, but the input faded down, the channel faded down, there's signal escaping. But with the auxiliaries 1 to 4, or sorry, 1 and 2 in play, it has taken a lot of noise away. I can only assume that's because there's no signal coming out of those auxiliaries. It's also extremely lowered the output signal. It just gets stranger and stranger the more I go through this. So now I'm going to go to auxiliaries 3 and 4, which are exactly the same, but for proof's sake, as you can quite clearly see, I've now plugged into auxiliaries 3 and 4. My input masters are up on both channels, and my output masters are now all the way up, and there's nothing there. And it's doing the same as auxiliaries 1 and 2. I'm getting signal escaping, although a lower threshold than what was happening through 5 and 6. Now, if I plug something into the front end of it, I will get signal out the end, out the back end. However, that's about all. It's not actually doing what it's supposed to do. So now to do diligence, let's have a look at the subgroups and see if we've got anything. Oh, look at that. It does seem, oh, hang on. Well, of course, that shouldn't be happening because I've got signal there without them even being switched in. Now, there's nothing at all switched into the subgroups. Yet I have signal at the output of them. Yet there's no input faders up. I'm not entirely sure. Oh. And I have signal escaping the output with the output faders down. It's interesting. All right. So there you go. There's a bit of an overview of the many faults I have found. Oh, and also now this, of course, being a professional mixer, I should theoretically be able to plug and unplug channels with it having no effect. So as you can see, yes, we get signal coming out. If I just use it as a straight in and out, and it sounds okay. However, I should be able to, You're kidding me. With an input fader turned down and a drum machine plugged into the front end of it, there's noise coming out. How? How is that noise even getting to there? That bus is shut down. Noise, noise. Another one. Oh. Oh, you're joking. There should be nothing. You shouldn't be able to hear a fucking thing. There's nothing turned up. Where's the signal coming from? I mean, yes, the master out is turned up to 0 dB, but the master in isn't. It's completely down. Now it should be completely quiet and there should be no noise whatsoever when I'm plugging and unplugging things. Oop. Well, that one's probably just quiet because it's got these plugs plugged in into the stereo channel. Yeah. Now there's one of these channels that goes fucking hot. Yeah, that one. Oh, and that one. Oh. There's nothing more I can do with this. I've documented the faults that I've found. If it wasn't for those faults, it would be a great desk. Because I really do love the Allen Heath EQ. Great sounding desk, although it's very old. However, it should not be in this condition. What I'm seeing does not reflect the issues, like what I'm seeing physically does not reflect the issues that I'm finding electrically with it. It's a real shame. Hey, just secondary to the video that I created about the Allen Heath GL200, 2200. I bought the mixer off Trade Me from a lady called Serena Lou, I think is her name, not entirely sure. She never actually gave me her name as such, so a little difficult to say. Anyway, I had to drive to Wellington to pick this mixer up, which was a hell of a journey in itself. I'm not really that fond of driving. When I got there, the mixer was in a place that is probably best described as a kiosk. Kind of, if you can imagine somewhere on the side of a busy street, which is exactly what it was, like a hot dog vendor or a little ice cream.
Bunch of apartments.
And surrounding it was a bunch of apartments, or what appeared to be apartments. Not entirely sure. It was in the business district. You know, it wasn't. The whole place wasn't conducive to actually setting this thing up and going through it sufficiently. Had I done that at the time, there's no way I would have taken it away. However, as you can see from the video that I've made on it, it has many faults. I contacted Serena. It wasn't the day after, it was the day after the day after. The Wellington journey, to give background, I live in Tauranga, so I drove to Wellington and loaded the mixer into my van and drove back to Tauranga. So by the time I got back here, there was no way I was going to do anything with it. And it wasn't until later, the next afternoon, that I even got it out of the van. Anyway, I went through it when I got to it and found the faults. As I say, I contacted Serena. To be fair to her, she did get back to me, insisting that no, there was nothing wrong with it, and eventually suggesting that I had, in fact, because I have one the same, that I had taken parts out of the one that I have, and had put them into hers to make hers sound bad. This is just not possible, feasible, certainly not a thing at all. This went on for a day or so, texts and conversations. She said that I could talk to her technician. I rang her technician, a man called Steve. I never actually found out his surname. He presented himself as a sound technician. In the video that we actually saw of him, you see him sitting behind a computer at a desk, kind of giving the impression that he's doing something to do with sound. He said to me all kinds of things that actually had very little relevance to the subject we were talking about. Kept going on that it was a bespoke mix, so I was never actually quite sure what that meant. I mean, obviously I know what bespoke means, but I couldn't really see what reference that had to the subject at hand. And it turned out from my conversation with him that he hadn't actually used this mixer to do shows, or so he said, with Serena, and had only looked at it and said to her, "My word, you should not be selling this. This is a marvellous looking piece of machinery." Which, to be fair, yes, it does look very nice. And the look of it doesn't really suggest the faults that are with it. That's not the picture it presents. However, the faults exist. I said to her, "Well, look, I'll send it back to you. You can refund my money." And you have to bear in mind, it's going to cost me at least $300 or $400 to send it to her. She's quite adamant that no, there's nothing wrong with it, and that I've in fact inflicted this damage in either the travel from Wellington to Tauranga, or that I have, as she suggests, changed parts from my very sick GL 2200. Yeah, none of this is, of course, the truth. I rang some friends of mine that own a company called Live Sound in Auckland, and spoke to them about it. And if my honesty is in question, of course, they're quite happy to vouch for the fact that this is pure and honest. That's all I can really say.